Okay, so this is the question. Let's see what is it saying. So this is, guys, is a critical reasoning question, and the way you guys can actually, quickly know about this is the fact that first of all, it's going to have a small passage, and first of all, it's just going to have one question. So it says, which of the following, if true, most strongly supports the author's argument? So I'm looking for support. Okay. So it says, a popular, indeed almost scarconant nation is the inventor Alfred Nobel, created his famous Peace Prize out of contrition for the ghastly consequence of inventing dynamite. So there is some type of dude, his name is Alfred Nobel, and he created something. Yeah, it was his creation, and it was the fact that it is a dynamite. Okay, dynamite, some type of, I believe, a bomb, you know. Okay. However, closer investigation yields a more complex story. So there is some type of complexity. Okay. Some type of complex layers to the story. Let's see. While Noble designed the dynamite for use in mining, the explosive was almost immediately put to the use on the battlefields of the Franco-Prussian War. Okay, so though this dynamite was uh, probably intended to use, let me see. While Noble designed dynamite for the use in mining, the explosive was almost immediately used to the battlefields. Okay, so probably the original intention was that, hey man, we're gonna use this is in mining, right? However, immediately it was used in for war purposes. That's interesting. And despite witnessing the effect of his invention, Noble embarked on the subsequent development of smokeless gunpowder, a substance with obvious battlefield application. So the author is basically saying that despite witnessing the effects of his invention, so Noble, blah 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 blah. Okay, so even though Noble knew that his stuff is being utilized for war, so he still persisted. Okay, and he was still going with his inventions, given the fact that they could be used for wrong cause, something to this effect. Noble claimed he created it for theoretical purposes, but offered it first to France and then eventually to Italy. So something to the fact of it had theoretical purpose, and then he kind of like sold his inventions to two countries. What was it? France and Italy. Okay. Moreover, in the last decade of his life, Noble was directly involved in the development of rockets, cannons, and gunpowder. So he was involved with a lot of stuff. Okay. For all his fine words and his wanted peace prize. Oh, I see what the author is saying. So this noble dude was not really a peace lover. The fact that he was, doing a lot of this dynamite business with for wars, and selling this stuff to people who could probably use it for creating a war. So probably the author is going to say that, hey, this peace lover is not so peace lover. He's basically a war lover, something to this effect. It would seem Alfred Nobel was very much a man of war. Okay, so the final conclusion that the author has given, that this Albert Nobel is basically a man of war. Okay. So the author has given us a lot of evidence. So the premise one was the fact that he persisted, given the fact that his stuff was used for wars, even though he was calling it some theory, but he was selling his stuff to France and Italy, and he was involved in making these. I don't know, what was it? So obvious battlefields. Yeah, gunpowder, a substance with obvious, and then he claimed France, Italy, moreover, his last decades in Nobel were involved in the dwarf. Okay, so he was making rockets and cannons and gunpowder, all of that stuff. Okay, So, using these evidences, the author has basically concluded that he was like a man of war. So now the question is, what could actually support this uh, this argument? So, I mean, all of these basically evidences are suggesting that maybe, this guy was not a man of war. Maybe, he was just doing it for the money, and people who were willing to buy his stuff was basically, had a lot of money, and therefore maybe this poor guy had no choice but to sell his stuff to the people of wars. Maybe this might be the case. Okay, maybe because this is like an assumption, or okay, an assumption that AN was a poor guy and he had no choice but to sell it to those who had high money. And it was not AN, but it was the people who had money who were the men of war. This could weaken it, right? This could weaken it. However, what if I can come up with an argument by saying that, hey, AN was deliberately or intentionally, you know, working as a spy agent for some military war, some military forces, and he was doing or probably had some type of hidden contract sign which said that, hey, you know what, we want to do stuff with war and we want your help, so are you in or are you out? And he said, yeah, I'm in, count me in, something to this effect. So, guys, so what would basically strengthen it? Anything which basically gives me information about his intention, or some word that, yeah, this guy was doing it on purpose, not the fact that he just wanted money. Okay, something to this effect. So it says Noble believed that offering combatants weapons with overwhelming force would deter aggression and reduce the likelihood of future wars. This is basically doing the opposite. I mean, I want to prove that he was the man of war, and he's basically the last option, basically saying to reduce the likelihood of future wars. This is clearly doing the opposite. Alfred Nobel used money from his armed developments to fund the monetary portion of the Peace Prize. Okay, so Alfred Nobel used money from his armed development to fund the monetary portion of Peace Prize. Is this giving me any information to the fact that he was intentionally involved in this and he was actually man of war? Alfred Nobel used money from his armed development to fund the monetary portion of the Peace Prize. Is this giving me information that he was a man of war? No, not really. Nobel deliberately obfuscated to the military dimensions of his scientific research. Now we're talking. So this guy was deliberately, when you're obfuscating, basically you're making things hidden, or you're not clearly exposing them to the environment so that everybody can know. So you're kind of like hiding things up. Nobel deliberately was hiding the military dimension of his scientific research. This is doing a damn good job. Okay, so I'm going to keep this one. Alfred Nobel profited heavily from the rockets and cannons he developed for the Swedish armed forces. Okay, so just because he is basically interested in money does not intentionally justify that he was actually a man of war. Maybe he was, like I just highlighted this assumption, I believe, that I stated that, hey, maybe he is not into wars, and the only reason he's basically selling his stuff is because people are who want to buy are men of war. But this doesn't mean that he was a man of war. So B doesn't work. Records come to the light that prove Alfred Nobel performed military services as a young man. So if he has served as a military service dude as a young man, does it justify that he was a war man? I mean, you could. I mean, first of all, this is in the past. Okay, so it has this time assumption. That just because previously he was a military dude, therefore even today he is gonna be, interested in the military stuff. Now he is some type of scientist, I believe. What is he exactly? So he's an inventor, right? He's a scientist. So I mean, there's a lot of problem with this one. First of all, it has this time constraint. Second of all, if someone is into military, does not justify that he wants war. Okay, what if he just wants peace and he's just doing it to defend his country, right? So the answer is C. So guys, uh, do you follow, or you have any questions related to this question?
No, basically it was a very easy one, I think.
Oh, okay. So it was an easy one. Okay, cool, cool. So that means that you guys are following. Okay, okay.